I'm thankful that so many of you sent in words of appreciation for your moms, appreciation for the ways they loved you, the way you were blessed by the presence of God in your mothers. I think it's really important to identify divinity as the source of all this, and to identify the divine not with philosophy, not with doctrines, not with rational explanations, but with all aspects of being that exemplify life and love and caring and kindness and respect and nurturing. That's what is the core of that essence of spirit we call the divine. And so before we take a look at the particular words that you sent in, I want to highlight how that's connected to the divine by reading some of the passages in the New Testament that talk about how God is these things. So we know in Corinthians, that beautiful passage where the greatest gift that God has given us is the gift of love. And love is patient, love is kind, not envious or boastful or rude or arrogant. Love does not insist in its own way. It's not resentful. It doesn't rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. And in Galatians, another writer, the Spirit of God produces love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, humility, self-control. 1 John puts it this way: if we love, we know God. Because God is love. God's not a doctrine. God is spirit. God is love. So let's take a look at what love has done for so many of you through our wonderful moms. So I'm going to start over here. So these are the words that were sent in. Mom was fun, kind, caring. What's this one hiding here? My cheerleader. I like that. Mom was my cheerleader, taught me to make, do, and mend. There we go. Intelligent. She prayed for everyone. Gentle, supportive, self-sacrificing, fiercely loyal to family, always smiling, never complained. There's some great descriptions there. Encouraging, amazing cook. Oh, that's nurturing too. Good, nice meals. Quietly humorous, best friend, loves everybody, generous, compassionate, honest, always there for you, forgiving, remarkable, door is always open option. Oh, isn't it great? Those moms that they kind of were the center of the community. All the kids came over to your house because your mom was so warm and welcoming. Religious, had a faith, loyal, cool mom. Communicator extraordinaire and keeps in touch with family and friends. Love, reliable. Let's see, here we go. Yeah, we got that. Best friend, loves everybody, heart of gold, generous, love people. Made clothes for us kids. And witty, sweet, active in the church, faithful friend, smart, heart of gold, loving, non-judgmental, and here, superb organizer. That's helpful. Calm, strong, no matter what happens. Yeah. Fashion plate. Devoted, understanding, neighborly, beautiful, angel, courageous, selfless, proud, mildly sarcastic, blessed, awesome teacher. Oh, fantastic words of description. And we just want to soak in the blessing of those of us who grew up with that kind of love. And of course, when we receive that kind of love, it's our moms are channeling the divine. I think it's so important to identify mothering with more than biology. There's a lot of moms out there who never had a child. We want to identify mothering with that capacity to provide nurturing love, to identify with the presence and nature of God. Because not every mother is capable of being a good mother. This is a very complicated day for a lot of people, a very painful day, and a sad day for others. When I think about my mom, I'm so appreciative of all she did and trying to keep her household together and cook the meals and encourage me to play the piano. But, thinking of my mom always makes me sad. My mom, when she married Dad, got so wrapped up in his religion that she ceased to be the amazing, talented, love-deserving person that God made her to be. Instead, she kind of, as we say, drank the Kool-Aid of a very judgmental religion. She was convinced by my father that his religion was the only right way, and his religion meant taking the money that my mom's dad gave her to buy them a house and spend it on producing religious pamphlets and sending them out. Can you imagine not having a home because your husband tells you that God's to take the money to spend it that way? Being a part of that religion meant to my mom having to throw away all her jewelry. She told my sister once that something just died in her when she had to throw away the pearls that her dad had given her. This is the kind of craziness that people from good families really don't know about. But for Mom, it also meant, I can't remember my mom. She never had one friend, not one person. In fact, she was even cut off from all her relatives because she was part of what really was a cult. And so for Mom, growing up, being a part of that, it meant being emotionally frozen in order to survive in a fear-based religion. It meant that my mother had little nurturing to offer her children. It meant that her kids kind of grew up feeling like orphans. So it's important not to glorify just having children, because without love and nurture, children grow up hurt, and they grow up too hurt. Thankfully, the kind of mothering the children of these mothers had was just so loving, so nurturing and wonderful. It doesn't mean there weren't problems and struggles, but these are deep memories of joy and thanksgiving and appreciation. They felt that sense of that divine love. And that love that God gives us all a capacity to be a part of mothering love. It's not a gender thing. God doesn't have genders, but God is male and female energies. And love is not biology. Love is spirit, energy. Because God is neither male or female. God is spirit, that presence of masculinity and femininity that nurtures life. A man or a woman doesn't need to have a child to be complete. We just need to find ways to nurture what needs to be nurtured and to support and care for one another and to use our creativity positively. That's what makes us complete. There are as many ways of mothering as there are people in the world, which is good news, because when our birth mothers can't nurture us, when our birth fathers cannot support us, God, the mother and father of us all, comes to us through one another. We give thanks today for the adoptive mothers who adopted kids. And that's a challenge, because when a child is adopted, even in the best of circumstance, at a deep level, the child has a psychic scar. The child will wrestle, even unconsciously, with the concept of, why did my mother abandon me? And so it's hard for them to attach often to the adoptive parents, and they test that relationship at times. And they often struggle throughout their lives, as those of us who didn't receive that nurturing from an early age from a birth mother, they'll struggle to be able to have meaningful relationships because there's a fear there, a fear that I'll be rejected. So we thank you to those adoptive moms and bless you for hanging in there and just loving your kids through thick and thin. We think of teachers and grandmothers and aunts and uncles and, anyone who's connected to their feminine energies can give that important gift of mothering. My dad's recording engineer, Sonny Mills, was the most nurturing person I had in the first 10 years of my life. Looking back, I figure he was probably gay because he was in his 50s and he never had any women friends or talked about them or to them. But whether he was or he wasn't, the fact is he was so nurturing to me. He was patient, just patient, always made me feel welcome. Even when he had a busy, demanding job, he always welcomed them into the recording studio and cared for me. And so love came to me through Sonny. And we all have that gift of love to share. I think today of good women who have known the pain of being rejected for their decision not to have a child. And I think today particularly of women who've had abortions, not as a way out of taking responsibility for their lives, but as a way of taking responsibility of not bringing a child into a situation that their mother love knows would be bad for them and the child. And women have been so hurt and killed over not being able to have the right over their own bodies to decide what is wise and best. You know, in 1962 in Canada, that wasn't so long ago, 2,000 women died trying to get an abortion. Think about that. And thousands more were hospitalized. That's not an easy fix. When you die trying to terminate the life of your fetus because you just feel that the outcome will not be right, that's not taking the easy way. They made a sacrifice to not have a child, even as others sacrificed to have a child. And we give thanks to the women who chain themselves to the gallery at Parliament to raise the issue of the right of women to have their own God-given wisdom guide them in what is the right thing to do when the choices are often terrible choices. Historically, we know that men have tried to control women, and no good ever comes from that. We give thanks for a Syrophoenician mom who stood up to Jesus and challenged him for withholding help for her daughter because he was racist. He wouldn't help her because she was a Jew. And she said, "You're not getting away with that, pal." She says, "Help me out. You got to help my daughter. It's the right thing to do." And something changed in Jesus. The scales came off his eyes and he realized that God's love was for everyone, not just Jews. Something a lot of different people in different tribes need to realize. He experienced God in that woman, and that woman became his advisor. And he surrounded himself with strong women after that. They supported him financially and emotionally. But as things go, by the 4th century, Rome had convinced most people that we were all born in sin and that women were the cause of it, because Eve seduced Adam into disobeying God. And the church for years, and still in many places, teaches that women need to atone for their sins by giving birth, and that the pain of childbirth is their just and proper punishment. That's such an awful chapter in Christian history, but it's still with us. But there were always women who didn't allow anyone to make them feel less than. Julian of Norwich in the 14th century pushed back against the Vatican. She was a Christian mystic and powerful teacher, and she wrote, "Just as God is truly Father, so also God is truly our mother. As the body is clothed in cloth, and the muscles in the skin, and the bones in the muscles, and the heart in the chest, so are we, body and soul, clothed and encased in the goodness of God." She writes, "God is the true Father and Mother of nature, and all natures that are made to flow out of God to work the divine shall be restored and brought again into God. The motherhood of God is a welcoming thing on God's part," Julian assures us. "Divinity does not consider motherhood a burden to bear, for God feels great delight to be our mother." This office of being a mother, no one person has the ability or knows how or ever will do fully being a mother but God alone. She writes, "Divinity alone knows the work of motherhood." We thank that divine presence for how it enables us to love one another. And that's what Jesus was trying to point out in our scripture story today. When his disciples interrupted him and said, "Hey, your mother's here to see you," he used that to make a point. He said, "Yeah, but you're my mothers too. You're my fathers. You're my sisters and my brothers. Everyone who seeks to live God's way of love is my family." And when he was dying on a cross, he said to his mother, "That John beside you, he's going to be your son." And he said to John, "Take Mary as your mother." And he created a new family unit there because he knew that love could flow to Mary through John after he died. You know, there were no nuclear families in Jesus' day or in most of history. A nuclear family is a mom and dad and kids. That's not the way humankind was raised until fairly recently in more rich countries. We used to understand that it takes a village to raise children, a large interconnected community. Now, the nuclear family is great for adults with money. It gives adults less responsibilities and more choices, but it makes our families less stable. I mean, in a nuclear family, if a parent dies or there's a divorce or they have to move away from all other family members, the kids feel it the most. A nuclear family is fine for rich people who can buy whatever services they need. Although I'm not sure a grandparent living in a comfortable retirement residence will ever feel as blessed as grandparents who are surrounded by grandchildren and nephews and nieces and cousins and aunts and uncles. The extended family gives young and old an array of relationships to enjoy and learn from and to figure out how to deal with things from. There's greater connection through that greater set of relationships. And that offers children particularly more resilience in the face of pain and struggle and greater relational confidence and maturity. And so that's why it's so important to have spiritual communities that can be like families, where we don't care about differences, we celebrate them, and where we're there for one another. And I think of the words that you gave thanks for from your mothers, and it's so important that we're able to share those things with other people who didn't get that from their homes. You know, our communities need you people who've grown up in loving families. We need you in some ways more than you need us. We need you to be in our communities so that people like me who come into community never having had that, we can learn from you. Learn what it is to be a stable family. Learn what it is to be an upright person who cares for the community. And I came into the United Church because of the quality of the United Church people that I met. I came in because of Gert Trapp, my history teacher, who became my lifelong friend. And the United Church has saved my life. It taught me how to have a healthy home. It taught me how to not live crazy like I was brought up. It gave me a wonderful wife and kids who've grown up just knowing love from all the churches they've been a part of. And so this is the gift we have to offer. I don't think United Church people understand how precious the gift that they have to give community is, because they've known love all their lives. Not all United Church people, but most. But if we'll open up our hearts and our congregations to those who've been through difficult times and have just seen messed up relationships, we'll change their lives. The greatest ministry we won't do is not just in the community, it's in our own communities when we open them up and provide that mothering love to all who need it. And so it's important to identify mothering with more than biology, to realize it's part of the presence of God. And so we give thanks that we get to share in that divine presence. We all get to share a bit of mothering love, whether we've been able to give birth or not. And we give thanks for our communities where we can learn to love better, love more, and love everyone God sends us.